We're in Southern California focusing on what we're calling like a hybrid house.
My mom was diagnosed with triple negative breast cancer. Okay, I got to source some clean product for my mom. Now it's kind of like that light bulb moment.
Then I couldn't actually find any clean flower. We started growing it ourselves at a 2-car garage.
10,000 feet in altitude on average, where this plant evolved. There's a lot of UV there.
There's certain aspects of it that are going to be like the future of growing. We're doing something a little bit different this time. We're visiting 2 facilities in one episode. We're in SoCal, and we're gonna visit an indoor hybrid facility, which has aspects of a greenhouse and a full greenhouse. And we're gonna go see how they cultivate high quality cannabis in one of the most mature cannabis markets in the world. Let's go inside and meet Dr. Robb. So I'm finally here at Dr. Robb Farms with the one and only Dr. Robb.
Yep.
Yeah, you know, your reputation precedes you. Not only did you get your PhD from UC Davis, the #1 ag school in the world, you also played football for them. So you are a gentleman and a scholar?
Yeah, scholar athlete, I guess you might say. I would like to say I was number 99 in the field, but number 1 in your heart. But I had such a great time playing football there. Had the sincere honor and privilege to be inducted in the UC Davis Athletic Hall of Fame in 2019. I was a nerdy jock, I guess you might say.
Yeah. Well, let's talk a little bit more about the nerdy aspect. So
Yeah.
you got your PhD at UC Davis. Let's chat about that for a second.
I have a PhD in plant biology with an emphasis in environmental horticulture and a specific expertise in hydroponic crop optimization for cut flower production and controlled environment agriculture.
Got it.
Yeah.
Boom, mouthful. Let's chat about your career, your path, your life has brought you to where Dr. Robb is today.
Yeah, absolutely. So, when I was working on my PhD research and my dissertation, we always had cultivators walking into our greenhouses and asking questions. We're doing cutting edge hydroponics research, and people would come in, start asking questions. We started answering them and said, hey, would you like us to come out to your farm? And they're like, oh, no, please don't come to my farm. Oddly enough, I have not heard this since, but when we would ask them what type of crop they're growing, they would always say French basil, which I've never heard cannabis called French basil. But back then, I always kind of knew that there's a possibility that cannabis could be in my future. And, fast forward, I applied for a position at Spark in San Francisco. It was a production manager position.
That's a dispensary, vertically operated grow.
Absolutely. And I received a call the next day saying that, hey, we think you're a bit overqualified for a production manager position, so we've created a production director position. Fast forward a little bit more, I remember receiving a phone call from my mom. I was in the dry cure space at Spark at the time. My mom gave me a call to inform me that she was diagnosed with triple negative breast cancer. Luckily, they caught it very early, and she's currently cancer-free and still around and kicking it. When she was going to go through bouts of chemo and radiation, and I said, hey, Mom, I can get you access to cannabis. And I knew this was clean because I'm literally surrounded by a ton of it in the dry cure space at Spark. However, she also had a caveat. She said, I don't want to smoke. I don't want to vape. I only want edibles. And everything in the room around me was meant for smokable and vapable. So I'm thinking to myself, okay, I got to source some clean product for my mom. Now it's kind of like that light bulb moment. And I figured, hey, let's help other people gain access to clean cannabis with good science.
Got it. And this is like a hybrid house?
Yeah, we call it hybrid indoor. It really is an indoor house because of the amount of light we have in here, but I am a huge fan of the broad spectrum that the sun provides. In plants in general, they use more than just, blue and red light to photosynthesize. And what we're interested in doing is driving that net photosynthesis.
So you have an interesting relationship you do with Hydrofarm, some R&D and some other things like that with some of their brands and products. Can you describe that a little bit?
We have a really close relationship with Hydrofarm, and we work with them. We buy equipment through them. We buy supplies through them. And we do it through all our grows as we expand out. But also at the same time, we just started a relationship with them where we're doing research and development for them. It's validating that type of research and introducing that to the Hydrofarm team, and then distributing through their monstrous channels some of this technology to help you out to be more efficient, do it at a lower cost, and to be able to compete with the overall market. One of those perfect examples is the ag gas system. This is a group that does carbagation or CO2 injection, and CO2 being one of the limiting factors for net photosynthesis. Most people will just flood the room with CO2, but what ag gas does is it trickles and does microbursts of CO2 around the plant canopy. But the most important thing is they use artificial intelligence to know when to turn it off so you're not wasting it. In this house, we use about 20% of the CO2 that we normally would be using in a house of this size if we were just to flood the space. And so what's intriguing about what ag gas has done too is they did a study on tomatoes, field-grown tomatoes, where they used this technology on open field grown tomatoes, which is mind-blowing that, you'd think like, okay, well, the breeze is gonna knock that CO2 out. It's not gonna have any effect. They saw an increase of yield of 127%. But we've also done this type of research with ag gas on cannabis. And so there's a farm up in Ukiah that grows under hoop houses. They saw a 50% increase in yield during the summertime.
People are fighting for like 5% increases.
Yeah.
So when you get into the double digits, that's just no brainer.
It's mind-blowing.
I do think that some type of greenhouse or hybrid house is probably the future of cannabis production.
Yeah.
And that's what we're trying to do in this episode, to show off like the fact that you can basically have an indoor environmental control with the benefits of the sun, and maybe also cutting down some costs that would be associated with electricity, some of the HVAC associated with that,
100%.
and a few more things. And you guys are at the cutting edge of that. So Zach, it's a pleasure to meet you. Dr. Robb was saying you are like one of his main guys. And I guess, what does that make your role here?
Director of Operations.
Got it. So how did you end up getting in with Dr. Robb and the cannabis industry?
I've known Dr. Robb a long time. I started in the black market and kind of the shadier neighborhoods, and I interviewed at the dispensary that Dr. Robb was on the grow side for. And he hired me, he interviewed me, and we've been working together on and off ever since.
Nice. Okay. So yeah, I brought you over as part of the main team, the art and the science.
Exactly.
Perfect. So let's chat about this room a little bit. I mean, I see tons of cloning domes over here. I mean, you guys have to have thousands of clones here. How many cultivars does this represent?
We have 6 in production right now. And then we have a number of that we're, pheno hunting and always looking for, the next big thing.
Got it. So for the 6 in production, I mean, that's actually fewer than most operations we've been to.
Sure.
But I think it's every grower's dream to have, in a way, like fewer strains, fewer cultivars, so you can really get it dialed in.
Yeah, there's a lot to be said for stability, predictability, repeatability. I want to be able to take a harvest, have my wet weights, and know that by the time I'm done processing, what my final weights are going to be, within a certain margin. I can't do that if I'm growing a different strain every single time, right?
Yeah. In this room, there's obviously quite a few mothers, right? These mothers represent the 15 cultivars you were talking about.
Absolutely.
And it looks like you probably have redundancy then, because I see way more than 15 mothers here. Can you talk about what your kind of philosophy is for keeping mothers? How many, how long?
Yeah, absolutely. It all comes down to the number of cuts that we need per cycle. We obviously have our schedules laid out well in advance with the number of plants that we need for each zone. And we have margins that we maintain from cloning through veg, passing down to flower, so that we know we're only going to roll with the 80% best plants out of that batch.
Got it. And HLV, I wanted to bring that up, the off-latent viroid, because it's like a lot of people in California have it, and they have to basically, if you're bringing in any new genetics, phenotyping, a lot of people don't know this, but it can actually transmit through seeds as well.
Yeah.
So a lot of people think, oh, I got a seed, I'm good. Not the case.
Yeah, no, we've actually seen that here in some of the seeds that we've popped that have been, kind of untouched, isolated, have still tested positive. So we kind of moved to some more aggressive protocols. We brought in in-house testing equipment. So before every round of cutting, every week essentially, we're running tests on the bombs that we know we're going to be cutting. And then we test all the way through veg as well, just to, be able to backtrack if anything should test positive.
This is actually the only fully indoor room in this facility, really, right?
Yeah, exactly. Like I said, this room was retrofitted. And it makes sense for the bombs to be in a more controlled environment. And then our veg and our flower are both sun supported.
Yeah. Yeah, the hybrid, sun supported. I like that.
Yeah.
Sun for the assist.
Hey, this is Zach with Dr. Robb Farms, and we're doing a cultivar review on bubbleburst. Bubbleburst is a cultivar that we acquired from the legacy market. We did that for 2 reasons. We're always looking for new genetics, but we wanted something, that really stood out on its own merits. It's a really nice, deep purple to it. The finished product, the bag appeal is through the roof. If we were looking to grow based solely on yield, it might not make the cut. it takes a lot more a dedicated approach to really get the juice for the squeeze, as it were. And it's got a nice little kind of more sour fruit notes to it versus your kind of more sweeter grapey notes that you find on a lot of strains today. It's anywhere from 30 to 35% when we test it. It's indica dominant, but it is well balanced. It doesn't really, lock you onto the couch or anything like that. I find it to be pretty cerebral. Thanks for joining us. Once again, I've been Zach with Dr. Robb Farms. Enjoy the rest of the episode.
So Zach, I also have Mike here, our man from the CannaCribs consulting team, and he's along with us on a lot of these travels to these amazing facilities, and he's gonna chat with you about veg.
Nice meeting you. Are you guys finding a lot of good benefits from using a vertical system?
Yeah, I mean, it's always a challenge. We always got to make sure that we're getting eyes up on the third deck. We had to go vertical, which means, even our vertical space is limited as well as, side to side. So that meant we also had to utilize a light that would fit in each of those levels that would allow us to grow the plants a certain height.
These plants look pretty young. Generally, what do you see or like pH are you guys running them at?
We run a pretty straightforward formula. Find that when we reset the cocoa, we use our 1.6 EC solution, and that balances everything right out to a 5.8 pH, 1.6 EC in the root zone, and the plants are just like off and running at that point. Then we can steadily build from there. We like to send them out, minimum 2.0, but sometimes higher on the way out to flower.
And I see this giant piece of equipment behind you here. Yeah. Can you explain what this does? And what are we standing next to?
Yeah, this is our 35-ton AGS AC unit. It cools this whole room by itself. We have a big duct that runs kind of an L shape around the room here, then fans on each of the racks for each level. It basically maintains this whole room exactly where we want it. We have temperature thresholds. We utilize in the morning, we'll open the blackout curtain here, so we'll utilize sunlight. That'll close based on a certain temperature threshold. And this AC unit just maintains the entire time, whether it's 115 out, blasting full sunlight, whether we have everything closed.
Are you saying that you could run this room also as a hybrid room with sunlight?
Yeah, absolutely. So, obviously the more light, the better, the wider the spectrum, the better. It's a little limited in this space with how the light penetrates through the greenhouse roof, but we have seen an immediate benefit once we made our AC upgrades.
So typically, how long are these plants going to be vegging in here?
We veg for 21 days, and then after day 21, we send them on out to the greenhouse.
Cool. Let's go check that greenhouse out.
Yeah, let's go.
So Dr. Robb, let's chat flower. Yeah. This is the money room.
Yes, absolutely. This is where all the magic happens, right?
Exactly. So honestly, it's beautiful. I really like white LEDs on healthy plants, get a little bit of sunlight coming through as well. So you guys have mixed lighting. Let's chat about lighting strategy for this hybrid facility.
Yes.
Yeah.
So like right now, we're just now completing a lighting upgrade here, in all honesty. I love light from the sun. Broad spectrum is fantastic for the plants. And so when you see like the photobio LEDs here, we've been really impressed with it. We did a validation study on it. They yield great. They have a very low shadow profile. So we still get that light coming through from the sun. But one thing that's nice about this too, it has that broad spectrum that we're looking for. I like to call this grower-centric style of production. We're really gearing these lights towards high intensity, so we get that daily light interval that we need. What's actually kind of nice about these too, they're daisy chained, and so the installation costs are actually cheaper. Photobio, that's the first time we've ever seen that happen. And it's my understanding that we're actually the first facility that could do this, and so we're lucky to take advantage of that savings. What's great about these lights too is that broad spectrum, and you can see that the light penetration throughout the canopy is pretty extensive. Since we've installed these photobios, the light penetration's ridiculous how much light we get towards the bottom. What's nice about that too is now we are actually using less labor to lower branch. We're removing fewer branches on the bottom now because our light penetration is so deep that these flowers are grade A flowers as opposed to popcorn. We actually are having an overall not only larger harvest, but our ratio of grade A flower to popcorn or fluff is much larger now and is leaning towards more grade A flower.
Got it. And I mean, we were chatting earlier about UV, and the funny thing is, if you've been on the cannabis forums for like the last 2 decades, there's so many people about talking like UV's good. I don't know, UV's not that good. How much UV?
Yeah.
You know, what is UV doing to the plant? Is it increasing resin production?
Yes.
You've been able to see what UV does on an academic level as well as an anecdotal level. So
Yeah.
can we chat about the science that you've heard about with UV on cannabis?
Absolutely. So 10,000 feet in altitude on average, where this plant evolved, there's a lot of UV there. So cannabis can suffer from DNA damage just like we do. However, they have an enzyme called photolyase that can fix the DNA damage almost immediately. It's not a coincidence that THC absorbs UV. And so the plant evolved a way of sensing UV, and it then thus increased the overall cannabinoid content because of that.
Boom. UV,
Yeah.
cannabis.
Yes.
Glad I heard it from you.
Yes.
Okay. What EC do you bring them into flower at? And then how does that change over the cycle of like the 8 to 10 weeks that they're out here?
Yeah, for sure. You know, when we first bring them in, the EC can be anywhere from like 0.75 deciliters per meter to around 1.1. And then we will gradually bring them up. Eventually, around week 3 or so, we're kind of start to push them towards the limit, towards the 2 to 2.5 range. So we fertigate, we do drip irrigation fertigation in our coconut core here. And so it's kind of like we're doing microdosing of fertilizer every time we irrigate. Because you're hand delivering water, because you're hand delivering nutrients to the plants are not going out exploring the root zone. It's all about carbon allocation. Where's carbon being allocated to? We want that carbon being allocated to the flowers, to the THC production, to the cannabinoid production, the terpene production, to the yield. If the plant is investing its carbon in exploring the root zone, you have less available for the shoots. So if we can efficiently maintain the root zone as small way as possible, we'll get higher yields up top.
Let's chat environment a little bit.
Yeah.
This is a good spacious area. I mean, you guys are still using, it looks like these rolling benches here. And I think it's a natural choice when you go for a purpose-built facility like this. Can you speak to how you guys modeled it out?
Yeah, absolutely. So, you know, we want to use these IG rolling benches for one primary reason is horticulture is a real estate game.
Yep.
And so these are like apartment complexes. And if we don't have a plan on it, that means we have no tenants in that apartment. And this is a paying customer. This is going to pay the bills essentially. What we want to do is make sure that we maximize the space. This maximizes the amount of surface area that can be under the lights underneath the canopy. What's great about these, I can barely touch them and they can move. There's a lot of biomass on this table. And so it's very easy to move them. We've got little dials on the end. It's, you know, you can do it with one finger if you really wanted to.
Dr. Robb, thanks for the knowledge drops. I appreciate it. Thank you so much for letting us through your facility.
My sincere pleasure.
Yeah.
I appreciate you all coming.
Absolutely.
Thank you. I'm Dr. Robb from Doc Robb Farms, here to give you today's pro tip. And that is, how do we get cannabis to be a little bit more purple? Well, I'm going to talk about the science behind why plants turn purple and how we can get our cannabis plants to form more purple flowers. Now, when it comes down to it, everything is ultimately driven by genetics. So the purpling of cannabis is very similar to us humans tanning. When it really comes down to it, it's 2 environmental factors that we need to pay attention to, and that's light intensity, and temperature. And it's all driven around how photosynthesis works. So photosynthesis has 2 stages that we'd like to talk about, the light stages and the dark stages. Now the light stages, it takes the light energy from the sun or our supplemental lighting, and it takes that energy, that light energy, and converts it into chemical energy. That is the light reactions. The dark reactions is basically taking the CO2 out of the atmosphere and attaching it to a sugar. But what's most important is that the light reactions are completely independent of temperature, whereas the dark reactions are extremely dependent on temperature. The light reactions is actually quite oxidative to the plant and can cause damage to the plant. And so in order to shunt off that energy, it usually relies on the dark reactions to take that energy away, and we can take that CO2 out of the atmosphere and turn it into a sugar. But if that dark reactions are slowing down and that energy is still coming in on that light reactions, we have to find another way to prevent the plant from destroying those photosystems. And so what the plant does is it starts to produce a pigment, much like we would produce when we tan, the melanin, but they produce a compound or a class of compounds called anthocyanins. The reason why blueberries are blue is because of anthocyanins. This is how the plant protects itself from too much light, and it gives that response that we love with the purple in the plant. And on top of that, anthocyanins are very strong antioxidants, so there is some health benefit to it. It does not impart a flavor. I've heard a lot of people talking about purple flowers have a grape flavor, but that is not the case. It does not impart a flavor, but it does provide some antioxidant power, and it also looks very, very pretty. That's your pro tip of the day from Doc Robb.
So I'm here with Paul, who's one of the co-founders of Rove. And tell me, like, you're co-founder and president, is that correct?
That's correct. Yep. Founded the company with two of my partners in 2016 in California.
Got it. And like, you guys are one of the biggest brands. I know it seems like in the vape cartridge, but you're also expanding into other product lines.
Absolutely. Yeah. We do vape. We've done vape since 2016. It's our flagship product. That's what we're known for. But we also do infused pre-rolls. We have flower coming out of this facility, and we have a drink also called Drink Loud.
Nice. And you guys have some award-winning strains too, or well, I should say award-winning products.
Absolutely. Our cartridges have won awards in every state. Most noteworthy, especially with this facility, we grow a strain here called bubbleburst, and we won the Emerald Cup 2 years in a row with concentrate made from that strain.
Well, Paul, thanks for swinging by while we're out here. Really appreciate it. Look forward to smoking some of your carts.
Thanks for coming.
See the cannabis videographers. After a long day of filming cola after cola, of dank ass nugs, cannabis sativa and cannabis indica. If you're quiet and perceptive, you'll see them listless, lethargic, after taking nug porn shots for hours. Completely sober. Yet, despite all this loitering about the Airbnb, a quick inspection of the shooting schedule shows that we have 10 hours until we need to be on set. Kyle, thank you for allowing us to come to Palomar Craft Cannabis, which, is a really interesting operation because we're in Southern California focusing on what we're calling like a hybrid house. And that's what this is, right?
Yeah, so one of the taglines we came up with is a clear top indoor. Like, this place is actually licensed as an indoor facility because the state of California made the determination it's too high tech to be considered a greenhouse. So they made us relicense ourselves as an indoor a couple of years ago.
So let's chat about how Palomar Craft Cannabis came to be. Like, what is the origin story of this?
So I got in the cannabis industry over 10 years ago after I was in an accident. So I used to own a distillery in LA, and I was making a batch of potato vodka, and my still blew up. So I was burned really badly on my chest and stomach with 2nd and 3rd degree burns, and cannabis really helped me to heal my burns. So I made a salve out of some trim and the cocoa butter and silver nitrate, and I became an advocate of the plant because there's really some very powerful medical values the plant can offer. But then I couldn't actually find any clean flower for medicinal purposes, so we started growing it ourselves in a 2-car garage. And that was kind of like the prototype of what Palomar turned into today. Products like, Roots Original, which is an organic soil, and then Heavy 16. Those products really helped to make us really successful at scale, to make our consistency perfect.
Got it. And you guys are generationally agricultural, your family,
Yep,
right?
that's where our name comes from. So my grandpa was Palomar Farms, my dad was Palomar Nursery, and we're Palomar Craft Cannabis. So my family's been growing in this valley since the 60s and 70s. Over the last 6 years of running and operating the facility, we've been really focused on data and analytics, using real data from your cultivation facility to actually make data-driven decisions instead of just holding your finger in the air and just making a guess. Out of this company, we've spun out a software company called Palomar Data Systems that allow us to track all the operational and financial metrics. And we've actually just gotten acquired by a chain of dispensary called Highways Cannabis Company. So that's a lot of cool stuff that's happening for us right now.
That said, why don't we jump into the facility, huh?
Sure.
So I heard this was the psychoactive agriculture propagation station.
It is now.
Yeah. You have this facility, you have more cultivars, more strains, that's more complexity, but some people like to go that direction because the market loves diversity.
Yep.
But cultivators sometimes want to do fewer cultivars so that they can make it like a monocrop. What's your guys' philosophy here?
For us, like, you know, variety is always king. Like, now that we actually are aligned with the chain of dispensaries, like, we always have to have like constantly new strains in development just to keep our customers engaged. So we're always pheno hunting, working with breeders, working with other nurseries to introduce new genetics into the Palomar system.
Got it. How many are we talking about right now?
32.
In production?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Yeah, there's
Okay.
about 3,200 cuttings in this room right here in our propagation room.
What about with the moms? Like, how many moms do you keep per cultivar, and then how long do you keep those moms for?
So the moms per cultivar are like anywhere from 2 to up to like 15. So like we'll keep 40 moms for one round of cuttings. And for us, we do things a little differently here because we're always focused on quality and consistency. We actually only keep our mother plants for about 6 weeks. And after the 6-week time when they veg out nice and big, we'll cut them and strip them bare, and then we'll just kill that plant itself.
Got it. So when you're cutting them, it's like you don't take clones from a mother more than once. You literally just take once, and you'll take as many clones as you can.
Yeah, one and done.
One and done. And so this 6 week you mentioned, is that like from when they start veg, they're 6 weeks old?
Right, so
So it's like a 6-week veg plant.
pretty much, yeah. Nice and big. We get about 50 to 70 cuts per plant. So that's enough to fill this room. That will actually eventually fill a room for one of the bays outside.
Wow. Okay, that's interesting. That's probably the first time I've heard of a production facility doing that.
Most people
Yeah.
don't do that because it's a little more expensive, but it ensures a really consistent health of the plants. My name's Kyle with Palomar Craft Cannabis down here in San Diego, and we're going to talk about Animal Tree, one of the strains that we grow here for our strain review. Animal Tree is one of our newest award-winning strains here at Palomar. It's a cross of lemon tree crossed with animal mints, and one of our favorite strains to grow right now. We just won a couple awards for it at the San Diego Farmers Cup, where we won Best Smokability and Best Flavor. And this one's a great strain. It's testing well above 30% THC for us on a consistent basis. Yeah, the Animal Tree is like a really nice hybrid, gives you a good body high, but still keeps you really aware. My favorite thing about the Animal Tree is like the really lemon forward aroma to it. Like, it's got a really good like taste of like sour lemons, and when you exhale, it's got like almost like this minty expression to it, and it just gives me like a really relaxing body high. So that's why, you know, we've had a lot of success with that strain. Grows really well in our system, and all of our customers really like it.
Bro, I got this. I got this. So Kyle, for this clear top indoor, let's talk about process, because I think I'm pretty interested in how you guys run it. So plants come out of prop, they go into veg.
Yep.
Walk me through it step by step.
So, you know, we take a rooted cutting that comes out of our propagation room that goes into a 1-gallon pot of green light from Aurora Innovations. So it's a really nice organic soil with high drainage, and like the root mass just gets really set in there quick. So we'll veg that for 2 weeks, and we'll do a top in like halfway through that cycle. And then we'll actually take those 1 gallons and can them up into a 5-gallon container of Roots Original, which is another organic soil from Aurora that we use.
How strong in EC or ppm?
We keep it pretty low just
Yeah.
because we're using Roots Original,
Yeah.
like for our soil base. Roots is like, it's a living soil. It's got a lot of really good microbes in it, and it's got a little bit of a charge of already organic fertilizer in it. So we're able to actually save a lot of cost on our heavy 16 fertilizers because the Roots Original already has a lot of those good fertilizers in it. It's that cascading absorption, like there's different sources of nitrogen and calcium and all the different nutrients in the soil, and there's different sources of those in heavy 16. So the plants can actually uptake all of those more efficiently when you have that variety, and just leads for a much healthier and robust plant. We'd never go much higher than 800 or 900 ppms. The soil is like, you know, it's constantly regenerating itself too, because we use heavy prime, which is like a bacterial food source. So the bacteria in the soil is always breaking down the fertilizers and regenerating itself. So we're actually able to keep that low as well. We use the worm castings, buy that from Roots as well.
Yeah.
And yeah, we'll amend that into the mother soil mix that we have. So
You guys are running Heavy 16. As I understand it, you guys have done like a lot of R&D with Heavy 16.
I was lucky to meet some of the guys from Heavy 16, like right when I really started growing cannabis. And I was really trying a bunch of different nutrient lines and like nothing seemed to work really well for us. And I met them and actually learned a lot from us. And so Heavy 16 has always been our like foundational line. Heavy foliar is probably my favorite product. It's foliar application, has a lot of good like CalMag and different nutrients in it. But it also protects the plant from environmental stress. I had a 10 light room where I tried it out for the first time. So I sprayed everything and I forgot to turn on my hoods, my fans, and my AC. And it got up to 123 degrees in my room. And I came back about 9 hours later and everything was fine except for one plant I missed and it was dead. But everything else was fine. So that was my first experience with heavy foliar. And I can definitely say like it really helps prevent those kind of like stress events for plants.
Yeah. And so like what light levels are you guys looking for in like micromoles at the canopy?
Right around 900 to 1,000.
Yeah.
But even without, like in most parts of the day, it's still just above 1,000. So we really don't use the supplemental lights for very long, but it's really important to get the right level of light consistently throughout the day. Otherwise you're going to have ununiform growth. So, and that could lead to deficiencies, toxicities, because the plant's metabolizing nutrients at different rates because the light's not stable. So stable light canopy is really important for a clear top indoor facility like this.
Yeah. And you know, air conditioning and HVAC is usually like one of the most expensive things to install in an indoor facility and one of the biggest energy hogs. And are you guys using like air conditioning in this facility?
No, for that very reason. It's too expensive and it's too costly to actually operate. So we have a really simple water wall system, like an evaporative cooling system with lots of circulating fans and exhaust fans to keep the whole climate stable even in the hottest times. Because it'll get 110 up here in the summertime, but we can still keep it 75 degrees inside the facility.
No kidding. Okay. Well, what about like DUs? Do you guys use dehumidifiers in here?
Only for emergency use, but we've actually found ways to actually burp the greenhouse where we can increase the heat in here, which increases the relative humidity, and we use our fans and our ridge vent fans to actually exhaust all that hot humid air. So we can still keep our humidity about 55% without the use of dehus.
We're so interested in the clear top indoor, and that's why we're focusing in this area of California, because we do think there's certain aspects of it that are going to be like the future of growing. And you know, if you don't mind telling me, I mean, like, what did this facility cost
compared to like an indoor square facilities are about 450 bucks a square foot to build. Ours place was about 150 bucks a square foot to build. Like all the lights, all the concrete, all the benches, everything you see here, all in was like about 150 bucks a square foot. So
Got it.
It's a much lower capital expenditure to build a facility like this compared to an indoor when you get the same quality at half the cost to produce.
You have so much data flowing into this new software system that you have. Let's jump in front of like a computer so I can kind of understand it.
Yeah, let's get it. So this is Palomar Data Systems and our heads-up display. So you can see over here on the left-hand side, you've got all of your rooms, what stage of the life cycle they're in, and then this is your schedule over here. And this is actually one of the coolest features of the Palomar Data System is our dynamic scheduling feature.
Earlier, we were also chatting about, honestly, just like leaf tissue testing, getting some of the data and analytics into this system. How does that manifest?
So we work with a company called Harmon Plant Labs, and we do about tissue tests every about 10 to 14 days. So we can come in here and look at all the tests we've done over like 30 days, 60 days, 90 days, and then really query the data. Another great way too, within processing. So these are some of our prototype dashboard that are coming up, but we have trimmer optimization. Right. So what we found over the years is every trimmer has their own style of kung fu when it comes to trimming up the plants. So with this, all we're really documenting is how fast each person is trimming up straight. So let's say we're trimming up Gary Payton and Frosted Cherry Cookie, and we have all of these trimmers in the seat today. So it's going to actually take a year's worth of data from them trimming here, and it'll show you who's the fastest trimmer, who's the slower, and you can actually see like how they compare in the different strains. So this is pretty much like the reason why we were able to become, cash flow positive so relatively quickly, because we had access to this kind of data.
Kyle, this software is awesome. I'm gonna get a beta license from you because you already promised you'd give me one. So no take backsies. Okay.
You got it.
Yeah, I think we're meeting up with Kristen up next, huh?
Yep.
Let's do it.
Cool.
So Kristen, what's your role here at Palomar?
I am the creative designer for Palomar Craft Cannabis. I do all the marketing and iconography for the brand and develop the mission statement for each strain to carry to the consumer. I'm an illustrator and I was designing toys when I got pulled in. I was actually designing girls' toys and dolls, which you can see translates to the logos and the icons. When I started designing the icons for Palomar, it was over 4 years ago, and there was really no reference. When you looked up a strain like ChemD, I mean, there was nothing to go off. It was just how I felt. So I created this whole menu library. And now when you go online, there are a lot of visual descriptions, icons from other packaging, but I really feel like I was one of the first to give this flavor a look.
What is the mission behind the way that you see branding for Palomar?
For every strain has their icon that is descriptive, and you really only get like 2 to 3 seconds with people in a store and you want to catch their eye. I wanted to have it induce flavor and get your mouth watering, accompanied by a good description, short and sweet, based on the terpene profiles and all the lab testing that we do. We use minimal packaging to reduce trash and waste.
God, it's not like a bottle of like Louis XIII cognac or something.
Right. It could be.
Could be.
It's just good.
Yeah.
It's quality.
Well, Kristen, you're like the Lisa Frank of cannabis. A pleasure to meet you.
Nice to meet you.
Okay.